Discover how Deb Coviello, host of the Drop-In CEO, turns business challenges into breakthrough opportunities. On her podcast, she combines her calming, insightful voice with 15 plus years of executive leadership experience to help leaders solve their toughest problems, uncover hidden growth potential, and shine light on the extraordinary work of others. Welcome to the Podcasting Secrets Show, where successful creators share their best stories, secrets, and strategies. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Hello, incurable creators, and welcome to this episode of the Podcasting Secrets Show with Deb Coviello. In this episode, she's going to share a phenomenal secret that she's developed to help you sell sponsored episodes. Thanks for joining us, Deb.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Nathan. I can't wait to share this value with your audience. But again, it's been a journey and I'm looking forward to sharing it.
So, Deb, can you tell us something about yourself that not everybody knows?
Okay, yeah, this is a fun fact by Deb Coviello, but I will put in the personal. I am married with 3 adult children and originally from the state of New Jersey. So you might pick up a Jersey or New York accent, even though I live in Cincinnati. But a fun fact about myself is I'm an amateur curler, curler. So
like the Olympic sport?
Absolutely. I do throw stones on ice, sweep, and yell
Love
at people.
It.
And I do actually have a silver medal at the arena national level, which is eventually rolls up to the United States Curling Association. So I wear that with pride. I got it in 2017. I'm sticking with it, but it's an amazing sport and could talk for hours about it.
Congratulations. Why do you love curling so much?
Oh my God. You know, it's interesting. I also have a video on my website, the Drop-In CEO website, where I talk about how similar the sport of curling is to business. You know, you go into situations, you are handed a team of players, and you've got to look at the conditions, which is the ice. You've got to look at your tools, your stones, and your brooms. And then you have to look at the capabilities of your people. Well, that's what we do when we drop into organizations. And how can we shine a light on their gifts and leverage them and work with what you got? And then, by the way, it is about relationship building. It's building rapport. There's a tremendous amount of etiquette, sportsmanship, and a community theme of it as well. When you're done curling at the end, win or lose, you still sit down and have a beverage with the opposing team, get to know them. So again, it's one of those things. There's a lot of parallels between the sport of curling and business, but I love it because of the community. You're accepted. You can learn a new skill and take a lifetime to perfect it. So love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your show? What's the topic? What's the target audience? How long have you been doing it?
So interesting, the Drop-In CEO. First of all, the title is very interesting. Where did the Drop-In CEO come from? And the journey started back in 2019, where I was just a new entrepreneur and I started learning about podcasting and, I could be a guest. And I loved being on shows. And it got to a point where I came across one podcast host and he asked me during the show, Deb, let's talk about your business. What is it that you do? And I said during the course of the conversation, well, I'm like the Drop-In CEO. I drop into businesses as a consultant and help them with a business challenge. And I deal with the messy middle and deal with coaching them as well. But when you no longer need me, you pull me out and drop in somebody else. And when the show was done, they said, Deb, that's brilliant. Where did the Drop-In CEO come from? And I said, well, it just fell out of my mouth. But then in the process, I reflected, hey, when I was a younger engineer in business and I was in a company that was in trouble, they dropped in a CEO who instantaneously rolled up their sleeves, sat down with us side by side, figured out how to resolve a business issue. And in the process, they built up my confidence and capability. And when their job was done, they pulled them out and put in a different leadership team. But I always remember how he made me feel. He didn't make me feel bad because we screwed up. He shined a light on my gifts and elevated me. And that was exactly the persona that I have in my consultancy when I drop in. Hence, I call myself the Drop-In CEO, not a consultant, not a business advisor. And with that, along that process, I caught the bug of podcasting and I was tired of chasing others. I said, I want to have my own podcast. So in February of 2020, I aired my first episode and I haven't turned back since. Now, who's my audience? Well, in the beginning, it was the wild, wild west. Who would listen to me? But over time, I said, this is for the C-suite leader of today that is at a point of getting stuck. What insights can I share with them? The guests that I bring onto the show, what insights can they help them? Because here's the key. I don't want them to struggle. I was in corporate. I struggled a lot. And I want my podcast to be a resource for that C-suite leader of today. Or what about those C-suite leaders of tomorrow in business that just want a coach, that just want some sound advice because maybe they don't have a support system? So the podcast is really a resource, a valuable resource to help others in their career journey. But I will tell you a nice output, and I'll bring it to a close, is I have met some absolutely amazing people in many respects that I've used them actually as a resource. I've referred them. And serendipitously, some of them actually gotten job offers because somebody heard them on my show. The podcasting ecosystem is amazing. Where I started was because I wanted a platform to have those conversations. And where I'm going, we'll leave that for the rest of the show.
Yeah, definitely. Target audience are CEOs themselves?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I target CEOs because anybody that has a high-level decision-making position that feels the pain when things are not going on. So my specialty is in manufacturing. I can go into any manufacturing environment, help them with their quality or their operational efficiency. So typically that ideal client in title is either the CEO or the president. They could be a vice president of operations or a chief operations officer, and many times a chief quality officer or VP of quality. Those are the people I've actually had on my show because maybe I wanted to get to know them better and evaluate a relationship. But similarly, I've brought those same CEOs because I know the ones that I'm targeting are also listening to my show. So I'm providing valuable resources for them to learn from. In fact, I just had a plant manager at a current client. And again, if you are listening to this at some point, you know who I'm talking to. He said, I listen to the show because I don't know where else to go. I'm getting some great advice to navigate their particular role. So anybody who feels the pain, who has top level responsibility, are those that come on the show, but also are listening.
Yeah. How long have you been running your show?
Yeah, so I am about to record episode 545. I started Push the Button February of 2020. I probably started recording November of 2019. It was weird. I set the intention. I remember even visiting my mother in New Jersey and talking about who was going to be my podcasting company, who was going to help with my marketing, what jingle I was going to use, what music I was going to use. I remember all of this. And it's a funny story. I almost didn't record the first episode. It was one of those, is anybody going to even listen to the show? Is anything I'm actually going to say be of meaning? And what if I flub my words? And what if it's not perfect? All this what if, because you're trained to be perfect as an engineer and in a high level quality position. But it was funny at that point, somebody else whose podcast I was on just contacted me in that precisely right moment. And we were talking about this. And she says, what's keeping you from recording your first show? And I said, you know what? It's just me. It's just me finding the courage to push the button and just hit record. And I am so grateful for that signal from the universe. It said, push the button. I pushed the button. And over time, I've actually fallen in love with the podcasting platform, one, with my own voice. I have something to say, and this has just been a platform to be able to hone my talking points so people know what I'm about, and also hone my craft in being able to interview others and listen to their value and be able to volley conversation back and forth so it's fluid. I've gotten a lot of compliments about the quality of my show, the quality of my voice. But again, it's been 5-6 years, and I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah. You've talked about some of the great benefits of having a podcast. You've talked about finding your voice. You've talked about being able to meet these amazing people that have been guests on your show. Can you talk us through some of the other great benefits, maybe even explain some of the biggest benefits that you've received over the last 6 years you've done this show?
Well, I'm going to talk about the biggest one, and I'm hoping your listeners see this, is I knew I was a good communicator. I knew through my business experience as a quality and operations professional that often deal with crises and have to manage teams to calm things down and get people to a place of performing. So I've learned this ability to deeply listen to others. And then when I come back and reframe what I thought I heard from them and then continue to evolve the conversation, my voice has been this gift that I have discovered. It's not just, oh, Deb knows how to use the right words, but my voice is calming. My voice has been able to get through to people. People, every time I show up on a podcast interview, a new introduction, they say, oh my God, your voice is amazing. And so I'm saying to myself through this journey, this is one of the biggest ahas. While I've been technically trained, again, pre-entrepreneur, technically trained as an engineer, leader, operational excellence. But in the process of podcasting, and again, this is just one discovery, I've learned I have a gift. And so often we don't listen to these gifts. And by the way, this was a gift I had as a child, but over time you kind of put it in a box. I've learned that I have a voice. So out of this podcasting, I realized that I actually have the skills to build more media, like doing more speaking, guesting on other people's shows. How can I take this voice, this insights, this value on the show? I've been able to be a panel moderator at professional organizations. I've discovered I can be a master of ceremonies, facilitating an event. So I've discovered this along the way, which a lot of people need to lean into these other things that just happen out of podcasting. But what I've also learned is that I've got to build some great relationships, not necessarily ones that turn into something that somebody that pays me, but I found my coaches. I've had to hire a branding coach. I've had to hire an IT person. I've needed mindset coaches. Every single one of them came across my path as an interesting person. And because we were focused not just on the conversation, but building a relationship, because we followed up afterwards, you build trust. And then when the universe says you need somebody, you got somebody in your ecosystem. So it's a great relationship building engine for whatever you need to do, because then your network becomes your net worth, if you've maybe heard that before. So finding my voice and finding great people to have in my network, not only to serve myself, but maybe serve others, are some of the things that I've discovered out of podcasting.
I love it. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your podcasting journey, and how'd you get through them?
Well, a few things. I mean, sometimes getting worn out because you love the media so much that you just want to interview and interview and interview. And I have upped my game to actually publishing 2 a week. And I love the conversation, but along the way, I've also learned that, oh, I got to get ready for this interview. I've got to research another guest. I also learned that I wasn't putting my own thought leadership out there. And so from time to time, I've actually reevaluated. What am I doing? How is it serving me? Am I enjoying it still? Should I keep doing or should I change? And I think as a podcaster, you need to periodically reflect. And so I have had times gone from 1 interview a week up to 2 interviews a week, back down to 1, back up to 2. And now I'm in a season of just 1 because I was getting worn out and I wasn't enjoying it. And you want to really enjoy this media. So that's one lesson learned, is listen to yourself and change it, because the seasons change, you change. And I've had to learn that versus just grinding. Oh, I got to do another interview. The other thing has been a challenge is learning how to monetize it, because it is, depending on what you use as resources, can be at a cost to produce a show if you want that high quality asset to reach your listeners. And there's many ways to monetize a podcast, and none of them sat right, or I was trying to figure it out. So knowing that money was flowing out and trying to find a way to have money flow in either directly or as a result of the podcast getting business has been a challenge. But I'll say it's probably a challenge for any entrepreneur that puts out any product or service, and what things are people going to bite at and what things are they not. So you can do podcasting for the joy of podcasting, but if it's also meant to drive some aspect of revenue, just know you're not alone. There's a lot of smart people that can give you ideas, but to find what's right for you has been a challenging.
Yeah. Well, that comment about monetization is a great lead-in for this next section. So you told me in the pre-interview that you are doing well monetizing with sponsored episodes where you charge certain guests to be on the show. Would you be willing to take us behind the scenes
Yeah.
and maybe share with us your strategy. What's the step-by-step process for selling and delivering a sponsored episode?
Yeah, so this is some stuff that we didn't talk before we actually hit the record button. So, once you get into the podcasting world, you start looking around and say, well, who else is podcasting? Let them be your friend and say, how are you doing that? Or how is that working for you? And so I've got a community of podcasters. And one of my colleagues, his name's Adrian, was starting to charge for guests being on his show. And I'm saying to myself, I can't do that. Oh, they won't want to come to my show. Some of this doubt, like, how can I charge for this? I'm going to turn people away. But he started telling me what he was charging. I was like, oh my, I can't charge that. But what I did do was I did take his template. He had this wonderful template he said I could copy paste. And in response to cold pitches, now there's a qualifier. I have different types of guests that come on my show. If they've come to me through a warm referral or I found them and invited, I don't charge them because I want to have a conversation. But as a podcaster, as you become more relevant, you get cold pitch. A lot of people want to get their client onto your show. So my original first letter, and again, I'll go over the details, charged $150. And I put it out there for 6 months and nobody said yes. And I said, well, okay, that didn't work. I'm just going to stop doing that. So actually, I continued to take people on the show at no cost. So I tried it and said, okay, I'm done. And then I talked to my colleague, Adrian, and he says, okay, so how's that go? Oh, yeah, I just upped my price. Now I'm doing this. And this is what I'm offering them. I said, okay, let me try this again. So what I do is I've honed my message. When somebody says, hey, I've got this great person, they would provide great value to your show. I counter offer almost immediately. I said, so for the opportunity to leverage my platform, leverage my audience, and realize great value, of which I've got over 11,000 listeners, 11,000 followers on LinkedIn, 250 on YouTube. And this is what my listen note score is. It's now up to 41, top 1.5% podcast. For that value, I said, I'm charging you $600. Now, for me, that was gutsy. I said, that is like the filter. Nobody's going to come onto the show. But if nothing else, I told you earlier, I was in a season of I just want to do solos. I was tired of doing guest shows. And so I said, if I put that filter up, if I put that high point of entry, I'm going to keep people away. Well, I started counting how many cold pitches I was getting a month, and I'm getting between 30 and 35 a month. And every single one, I am sending that exact letter. You get the opportunity to be on a show that's had over 545 episodes. If you want to proceed with this, we'll talk about it. We'll get you on the schedule, and I'll send you an invoice. Well, guess what? 1 out of 30 to 35 say yes. And so for $600, which covers a little more than 50% of my monthly production fee, I get people to say yes. And what does this get them? What it gets them is a little bit to the front of the line. What normally would be a 3 to 4 month window where they have to wait in line, I'll get the episode out in 3 to 4 weeks. Further, I give them a little bit more airtime. An episode for me is 30 to 35 minutes. I'll give them 40 to 45 because then after the show, they'll get some professional marketing assets, but then I also run the video through an AI tool and I generate 10 or 15 video shorts they can further use in the marketing. And then I'll post them a few more times on LinkedIn than the average guest. So I give them a little bit more value, but not much more. They're just looking for airtime to be able to get in front of another audience. I will tell you, they usually don't maintain a relationship. They're a one and done, but I'm now charging and I'm starting to get paid. And in the process, I've discovered my product, my service of being a podcast host and my platform has a value to it that some people are willing to pay. So I know I've shared everything with you, and who knows, it might be different the next time we get on a show together.
Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is brought to you by Pod Allies, the done-for-you podcasting services solution. When I speak with CEOs about their podcast, one of the most common comments that I hear is that they know they need a podcast, but they don't have time. Have you ever wondered how some businesses find a way to still run their podcasts while juggling their crazy day-to-day operations? The secret might be simpler than you think. Let me introduce you to Pod Allies. This is a service that's changed the game for businesses in the podcasting world. Pod Allies is a done-for-you podcast production and marketing service. They understand that while many businesses understand the immense value podcasting can have for their business, finding time to produce, syndicate, promote, and monetize a show can be challenging. Pod Allies offers a dedicated team to handle virtually all aspects of your podcast production. From strategy and branding to audio and video editing and guest scheduling, they've got you covered. They even take care of creating blog posts, transcripts, and syndicating your content across multiple platforms. What sets Pod Allies apart is their use of PodUp, their proprietary podcasting software suite. This allows them to streamline the entire podcasting process, saving you time, effort, and a bunch of money. If you're ready to become a thought leader, connect with your audience, and grow your business through podcasting without all of the investment of time and cost of doing it yourself, Pod Allies might be the perfect solution for you. To learn more or to schedule a free consultation with a podcast expert, visit podallies.com. That's PODALLIES.com. Now back to the show. Yeah. Okay. So let me restate this and let me see if I'm understanding here. So because you've been around so long and the producers know you and you have great listings on like listen notes and people see you as a credible show.
Yeah.
You get a lot of reach outs, maybe 30 to 35 a month. And then when people reach out to you, you have a templated email that you send.
Yes.
And you tell them about your price. And when you were selling it at $150, you couldn't sell any. And then when you went to $600, you started selling. And then those people pay you. 1 out of every 30-ish people
Yes.
Pay you, and then you interview them, and the other 29 you don't have on the show. You might invite people, or there may be warm referrals, and you allow them on still and don't charge them.
Of course.
But the cold ones that need to come in through this sponsored episode funnel that you've put together. Am I understanding that correctly?
Spot on. And
Did I miss anything?
No, it was just through experimentation and having the confidence to say, here's my offer to you.
Yeah. It reminds me of a guy. I'm sure I'm going to get this story wrong, but when I first started my very, very first venture in 1996, there was a guy named Steve Jenkins, and the internet was so new. There was no internet advertising, and he created one of the most popular internet sites on the whole internet. It was called Windows95.com. He bought that, and he had all the downloads for Windows 95 for operating system, all these cool little things and information. And he was an incredibly popular site. And so when he decided he wanted to sell advertising, the very first month, he sold it for $1,000 and nobody bought it. And then the second month, he sold advertising for $1,000. You'd get an ad on his site for the whole month on this whole site for $1,000. He sold zero. 2 months in a row, sold zero. So what did he do the third month? Instead of removing his ads and stopping to try, he increased his price 5x, and he increased his price to $5,000. And he sold 3 that month. So the same concept you're seeing is so often we undervalue ourselves. And when we try to sell for too little of a price, we're telling the world it's not very valuable. And sometimes we can raise our prices, and we can charge a lot more, and we can increase our ability to sell the product because it's perceived at a lot higher value. Sometimes just the price is enough to change the perception of value that the customer receives.
And it's twofold. By raising the value, they will perceive it. But there's also an element of yourself believing what I do is of value and should be valued by others. There's a little bit of a nuance in there. I've invested so much. I have honed my craft. I provide a great experience. I have access to my audience. That's worth a lot because, hey, if they get one sale, if they get a couple books sold, that's something. So it's also on us to realize what we do, our craft is valuable.
So you're monetizing through sponsored episodes right now.
Yeah.
Where's your future going to take you? What's the next monetization strategy that you're going to try for your show?
So there's a few things. One is thankfully appearing as a guest on your show as well. I'm grateful for the opportunity. It gives me the opportunity to reach more people, share my insights. Maybe somebody can go away with an applicable action today. So where am I going? I've had some coaching along the way. I am actively looking to guest on more shows. I need to increase my reach. That is a key pillar, increase my reach. So I also realize I am a good speaker. So I have also put together a speaker reel. I went to a conference, had it videotaped. I want to be able to showcase that I myself can provide value as a speaker because of all my thought leadership across business, podcasting, etc. But also I can facilitate great conversation on panels, etc. So that's one avenue. There's something that's pulling me into the media space. Deb on a stage, whether it's a podcast stage or a real stage. That's where I'm going towards. I could also see myself, if there's entrepreneurs out there that have been meaning to start a podcast, get their voice out there. I got a production company in my back pocket. I was thinking of maybe I'd own them someday. I have a production company that can be an enabler for others. And also, could I do live podcasting? I have always seen myself doing face-to-face podcasting. I even have the equipment with me, but hadn't had the opportunity. Wouldn't you know it? Manifested it. Again, I do believe in manifestation. Right in my hometown of Cincinnati, there's a live podcast studio. You rent the space. You could be face-to-face and with your guests in a beautiful environment and get the information right away, elevating my game. So by this journey of podcasting has made me realize I need to be in front of people. I need to be able to reach more people, and finding different ways to connect with more people is really where I'm going. Yes, I can do consulting, but I don't necessarily see my past and my current capability being part of my future, which I've discovered through podcasting.
Yeah. You are in the top 2% of podcasters as far as your traffic. What are the best traffic secrets that you could share with us? The best strategies to help the rest of us to grow our shows to your level?
Oh, that is such an interesting question. It's, traffic. And if I may clarify, it's according to Listen Notes, and there's other sites that do your analytics. I had a score of 41 and top 1.5%. Now, how did I get there? I really don't know, but according to Listen Notes, which is a reputable place, they put together all kinds of analytics. And it's interesting. Some people have told me, Deb, if you've got a 1.5, you should be having tens of thousands of downloads a month. So they say. But I've had other people say, a lot of podcasts end after 5 or 10 episodes. The fact that I have been consistently delivering valuable content for 545 episodes, or since February of 2020, over 5 years, consistently twice a week or once a week. And even if you look at how long do people actually listen, and by the way, I'm in over 140 countries, that gives me that high level of quality, not necessarily quantity. Because I'll tell you, I've been approached by a lot of people that say, hey, let me update your SEO. Let me do this for you, and I'm going to increase your downloads. Well, I'll tell you, that's a lagging indicator of value. What I have been focusing on is consistent quality content, no breaks, finding the best guests or the best insights for these 5.5 years. That, I believe, is what's enabled me to get a respectable score, not necessarily by the number of downloads, but my reach and people that care and listen long enough to value what it is. That's what I've been doing.
Consistency.
Quality. Yes.
Consistent quality, not just consistency, but consistent quality. When I did my first podcast, I made a commitment to publish every day for a year. And I did, but it kicked my butt. That was so hard.
Yeah.
And I kind of developed a philosophy during that I didn't want to feel like I was a prisoner to my podcast, right? And so I try to get ahead. I try to be over a month ahead on my recordings so that I never miss an episode. But I've kind of, how do you say, I'm taking it less seriously than I did before. And if like I just was in India for a month, and for a certain reason, a couple of reasons, on one of my shows, we missed a couple of episodes, and it's okay. Like, it's all right. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to try to be responsible and be ahead so that I never miss an episode. But if I do have to miss an episode, it's okay. And that my stress level or my having a balanced life, spending time with my family or whatever, if needed, I can drop an episode Do you think that's a wrong point of
Yeah.
view that I have?
So, yeah, we as perfectionists and high performers and high volume content creators don't give ourselves enough grace. But with time, again, you've built respect and trust with your audience. If you miss, if nothing else, they're going to miss you and want to listen to the next time. If they notice there's a slight disruption, if you miss 3 or 4 months and then try to come back, it's hard to rebuild that trust. So if you've had a consistent quality presence, and if you miss one or two, they're just grateful that you came back because you've built that relationship and they'll understand, just like a friendship.
I think it's better not to miss. I think it's much better to have that consistency to kind of deliver on your brand promise, but don't be a prisoner to your podcast. If you need to take a week off, it's okay. Your life, your mental health is much more important than publishing every week.
And that is why I took the decision to drop it from 2 down to once a week. And then it's pretty easy to stay on top and stay ahead. And also think about, your intention of what kind of content you want to present. What's the season telling you that you should present? If you're just a machine, you're a slave to it, and it's just a matter of statistics. But consistently providing value to your audience is probably the overarching thing. And the fact that you miss, that's okay. They know you'll be back there. Yeah.
And I think it helps me from getting burnt out, right? It helps me to keep that balance a little bit better.
Yeah, I just want to love this format. I don't want to another
That's
podcast.
Right.
I was excited. What am I going to share with Nathan and his audience? It's going to be of value. I always get excited. I want to give the best. And also in the process, we're building a great relationship.
Yeah. What is the best episode you've ever published? Your favorite episode or the most trafficked episode? Anything come to mind?
Oh, well, there's one that I just published that I'm rather proud of. There's two. I'm sorry. There's two. There's many. But the one that I just the one that I just put out was really interesting. I like to put out contrary information to what the public narrative is. And one was about imposter syndrome. People have made a lot of money on imposter syndrome, telling people that they've got imposter syndrome and how to fix you because you're broken. And I kind of said nay to that. And I said, don't call it imposter syndrome. You're just missing a support system. When you fall victim to a narrative, you become that narrative and then you're less than who you are. But, whenever you hit a bump in the road and you lose your confidence, you're resourceful. You'll figure it out. You have in the past. All you need are people that lift you up and shine a light on your gifts, not people that say you're broken. So I felt really, really, really strong about that one. Now, here's another one. It may not be popular with others, but this is a really interesting story. I read my high school graduation speech on air. And the reason why I did it was I was in the top of my class when I graduated high school, and I was one of 3 people that submitted a speech. I was not chosen, and the valedictorian of the class was chosen to give the speech. So one day, several years ago, I'm going through my mom's house. She saves everything, and she saved my high school speech. And it was the speech that was never read. And so I was getting very choked up. I said, this speech needs to be read. And very interestingly, the production company, I have an amazing editor, put in various features, noises that made it sound like I was presenting in front of my high school class. So cheers and claps before I got started with almost like a megaphone kind of sound. And then I read my high school graduation speech because it had purpose and meaning. It was very meaningful to me in a statement or expression that I wanted to share with the world. And then when I was done, loud applause from my editor, and we brought it to a close. And I'm even getting chills as we say it because I fulfilled a dream of mine to speak, to be on a stage, to be heard, even in high school. I had closure. And for me, whether anybody valued that episode or not, I created a piece of content that lasts forever. That one is a favorite of mine. I don't even remember the title. But I'm fulfilled in the process because I finally read my high school speech that never got read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you gave people kind of a behind the scenes look, backstage pass at your life and your soul. And I think that authenticity is incredibly powerful in building meaningful relationships with your audience. And I think we as podcasters need to do that a lot more. It's not about being always perfectly polished every single episode. I think
Yeah.
they appreciate that inside glimpse.
Yeah, and I'm actually having a personal struggle right now with this. I work with a production company. They also help me with strategy, and we're trying to get some more sales for my different offers, my book and everything like that. And they're proposing a bit of a marketing approach like, "Hey, here's a pain point. Here's how you can solve it. I've got this gift here that'll help solve your problem in 30 days or less." Make it salesy. And I said, "Wait a second. Where is the opportunity at the beginning of the episode just to break the ice and say, guess what happened to me this week?" and
Yeah,
give an
that's right.
opportunity to look at that behind the scenes, because people are, they just came out of a meeting, they're driving in traffic. You need a way to break the ice and ease them into the moment. So I kind of told my production company, I said, wait a sec, I know I have to hook people in. I'll change my format, but give me a moment to share a little bit about life with the Coviellos and get a little levity into it. Get them to see that I'm a real person. And then with that, transition into, but now I'd love to have a conversation with you. You need to be real. And I've had to learn that also in the journey of being a podcaster. The more real I am, the more relatable, you're going to build more trust and loyalty.
Yeah, for sure. A very important part of that credibility marketing,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big part of podcasting. Okay, what is your secret sauce, Deb? The secret of your success over these 6 years?
Just being in love with meeting new people, creating content. I'm a creative at heart. I may have practiced as a engineering professional in manufacturing all my life, but the secret sauce is I bring forward who I am as a person, and I now identify as a creative, not an engineer. So when you are doing the podcast, ask yourself, what is your purpose? Why are you doing this? Because you want to be able to fall in love with this over and over again with each encounter. So secret sauce is to maintain that love for this craft, but also be open to continually evolve, learn as you go, try out different things with your audience, change your format, still evolve, love the experimentation, but also just be yourself. That's the secret sauce for me.
Deb, if our audience has enjoyed this episode like I have, and they want to learn more about you and your services, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for the opportunity to have this time with you, as well as sharing some secret sauce with your audience. But there's two places I play. First one is go to my website, dropinceo.com. That's dropinceo.com. You can find me there. You can go to my contact page, request some time with me, get a free gift. And I'll add to that, if you go to dropinceo.com/gift, you get to get a free chapter of my book, The CEO's Compass, the first chapter in a PDF format, or you can listen to me read that first chapter. And I also offer you a free bundle of podcasts that I've curated with also just my best insights for you, just to get an idea of what it was like. But if you're also playing LinkedIn, Deborah A. Coviello or the Drop-In CEO, contact me there. I just would love to connect with you, get to learn more about you. And again, Nathan, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you.
And here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, higher pricing can often convert better. You might consider charging $600 for sponsored episodes instead of undervaluing at $150. Number 2, keep warm referrals free, but charge cold pitches using templated responses. Number 3, deliver extra value for sponsored episodes, faster publishing, longer slots, video clips, and maybe even extra promotion. Number 4, consistent publishing over years builds rankings better than chasing viral growth. Number 5, build a 1-month content buffer to maintain consistency without feeling trapped. Number 6, reduce frequency when burnt out rather than quitting altogether. Number 7, share authentic personal stories instead of maintaining perfect polish. Number 8, track listener retention and reach instead of obsessing over download numbers. Number 9, podcast relationships become business resources for coaches, clients, and referrals. Number 10, podcasting reveals hidden talents like speaking and facilitation opportunities. And finally, number 11, use your podcast to test other media opportunities like speaking and live events. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. If you like this episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for a great podcasting solution, you might want to check out podup.com, where you can get a free 30-day trial of more than 60 plus tools to help you create, grow, and monetize your podcast. And if you need help doing your podcast, we have a done for you podcast production, marketing, and monetization service called Pod Allies, which you can check out at podallies.com.